Welcome to the 8 Domains Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. Joined by Dawson Wells, who graced us with a podcast episode last time with Shannon, but because I was in charge of audio, it was unsalvageable. And so we're trying again. So take 2.
Right, the Lost Podcast.
The Lost Podcast. There's another Lost Podcast that I was asked not to publish. And so I didn't.
Oh.
Do you always just do what other people tell you to?
Most of the time. Yeah. It's my people pleasing, which is not the case at all. I don't really people please, but whenever it's people's I don't know, online presence, if they're uncomfortable with it, like this is not that serious. If someone doesn't like what they put out, they don't feel good about it, it's totally fine. We'll scrap it. So I was fine with it. All right, so we're here.
Yeah, here we are.
You've kiboshed my idea, the concept for the podcast, which was to play a game, since we're going to talk about recreation as the domain that we're going to focus on today. But that's okay, too. First, I want to start. Are you in another movie?
I will. I'm going to be. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about
not
that.
About me.
No, it's about us.
That
It's
that will
recreation.
relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that. Can
You're
relate.
like kind of doing this recreationally.
My life is recreation at this point. Yeah.
You guys are going to get along really well, because I've heard that out of Dawson's mouth before.
Yeah. I try to make it all recreation as much as possible.
I mean, I think you even said it like it's not that serious, or one of you said it. It's not that serious. Like
Yeah, no.
nothing is that serious. I think
Right.
we make things too serious.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I've tried to align my life around the things that are important to me, and that means I, sacrifice things that are less important. So yeah, in a movie.
Yeah. Short, feature length.
Feature length. It's the second with the same production crew. This one is a Christian horror film, strangely enough,
Okay.
which opens up a lot of conversation on. Really, the question is what? I think that's the.
Or why?
But it's
Also
allegorical.
good. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Lots of W questions. And,
Yeah.
And
Like Christian horror, like the Haunting of Emily Rose, where there's a lot of like Catholic undertones of demonic possession and stuff like that.
more allegorical, kind of in the sense of like
Constantine.
More like in the sense of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, like Aslan is the savior figure.
Right, yeah.
You never say this is directly a Christian thing. It's just like as you read it, it's like good and evil. So this is
Kinda
there's
like-
a lot of
Kind of
allegorical
like music by Creed.
Yes, we're gonna. That's actually
Speaking
the
of
entire
Christian horror story,
I really
right?
hope the soundtrack
all Creed.
has some Creed in it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Creed, so my 3-year-old the other day, I'm winning at dadding because I was getting ready to prepare dinner, and Miriam is at the bar and she's playing with her Play-Doh, and I start getting stuff out to start making the dinner, and she says, "Dad, can we blast Creed while we make dinner?" And I'm like, absolutely, absolutely we can.
raising them right.
She's starting to sing along with Creed,
Okay.
so yes, it's pretty fantastic. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, Creed gets a lot of hate, but in the 90s,
Yeah, 90s and early 2000s.
they were the
like,
kings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just forgot I had something I need to do.
What you need to do is go blast Creed. Is that what
While cooking spicy, sticky salmon bites. Yeah.
My partner and I play this like little sort of game of like setting like a different like sort of alarm song each day. We sort of take turns.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's like it is about like who can pick the worst one. Sometimes it's relevant, sometimes there's humor, but a lot of bands from the 90s have made their way in there. I don't know.
So you would hate it at my house because we're blasting Creed, or it's like I'll say the name of the little terrorist that sits in the corner of the kitchen counter. I can't say it because she'll come on, but I'll be like, play 90s Billboard hits. Right. And it's just all 90s, top 100s throughout the decade. And we'll just sit there and jam to that while we're cooking dinner.
I mean, I'm not like unilaterally like dismissing like 90s music. I mean, I grew up in the 90s. basically like a fangirl from the 90s all of the time. Yeah. Like I'm wearing Doc Marten boots.
You are.
Yeah. I'm like, I've just sort of like circled back to myself in the 90s.
I have not.
Well,
but good for you.
the wardrobe
it
is there
back.
waiting for you.
I know it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Hot Topic is there for
Yeah.
you.
When I stopped wearing like baggy Pez, like pink Pez t-shirts, my parents were like,
What's a Pez t-shirt?
"What's happening to you?"
Oh, you mean
David?"
like Pez dispenser?
Pez, yeah, Pez dispenser, like just the
Oh,
logo Pez.
I thought it was like a style.
Oh, no, it's this style where you just stuff shoots out of your
Yeah.
throat. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My parents were like, "What's happening to you, David? Are you growing up? You maturing?"
Yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah.
Can't wait for that to happen with Jamin. Jamin is into, I don't know if it's like steampunk or whatever that is. Is that a thing?
It is.
That's
Where like he's got like buckles and chains and like knee-high leather boots and like pants that have like zippers and pockets and straps. And
I mean, like that could be a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking
That could
you're
be
also borderline goth. What do you?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like I don't know.
there's some eyeliner involved and some lipstick.
Is the
here
leather
lately.
black or is the
It's all
leather
black.
Oh,
All
okay.
black.
That sounds more gothy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His hair is black and red now, which is cool. Yeah. So, yeah. What I wouldn't give to see him in a Brooks Brother button down, though.
I mean, what would be achieved by that?
Absolutely nothing. And that's why I joke about it.
Yep.
Yeah. He's way more interesting as himself than he would have been being the version that I imagined him to be when he was young. So this version of him is way more interesting to get to know.
My grandmother always wanted to see me in Brooks Brothers, and like, she did at one point, but the joke was on her because I was still the same. I was just now undercover.
Yeah. Well, all right. So
Yeah.
when we come to recreation, what do you have to say?
Did we do introductions? Have we even?
Yeah, I said that this is Dawson Wells.
Yeah, I'm.
Okay.
I did the whole
must have-
thing
I'm
about
sorry,
the last.
I was
Yeah.
distracted by sound. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry.
Dawson is a fellow therapist at Switchback Counseling Services here in Nashville, Tennessee. And in fact, in this building, just
Yeah.
down the hallway, which is the nonprofit arm of Benjamin Holmes Counseling. Tell us a little bit more about yourself before we jump into.
I mean, very much a recreation enthusiast.
Mhm.
You know, like, yeah. I mean, that's why, like, yeah, I was like wanted to do this podcast again because, like, that's, I don't know, like, it's something I'm really passionate about with my clients, and even like something that kind of came to my attention like just a couple of days ago. So like, I'm always sort of adding things to my like reasons for recreation. It was a clip like Brene Brown echoing something that like the writer Toni Morrison had said, but like it basically boiled down to like an artist without an art form is dangerous. Brene Brown said like something like, you know, like creativity without an outlet is malignant, I think is the way that she described it. And, you know, like, and I was like sort of thinking about it, and it's like when we don't sort of have like active engagement, like it does, like, I mean, like spiraling, which, you know, is something like, you know, constantly working with our clients on. I mean, that's a creative endeavor. It's like our imagination, you know, like I sort of think of it as like, it's like if you don't walk the dog, it'll chew the cushions.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and so I think of like recreation as like this, I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's important for a lot of reasons. Like DBT, dialectical behavior therapy talks about the importance of like finding things that give you a sense of mastery. You know, I don't know, I think a lot about passive versus active recovery. You know, like, I don't know, if we're sort of like experiencing, if it's not something like medically wrong with us, and it's like we're, you know, it's like 2 weeks, we're getting good sleep, but we're not like feeling rested, we're just tired all the time. I mean, it's possible a lot of times we're actually under engaged. And, you know, and so a lot of times I like find that like, yeah, I'm recommending like, well, how can we sort of get you more actively engaged? and and things that you can experience, that sense of like creativity, curiosity, exploration, find a sense of mastery, and do it like with that sort of childlike sense of like, I don't have to focus on it being good, like it doesn't have to be marketable. It doesn't have to be like my income. It's just like, I'm doing this because I love it. I'm doing it because it gives me energy. Sometimes it can give a sense of like community. It's like, there's like a lot that recreation can bring.
And I think a lot of people, when life gets busy and there's all of these demands on time, because we got to take care of our physical health, and then we need to maintain and invest in relationships, and then jobs and work can be very overwhelming, with some people working 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I say 40 like it's strange, but that's most people's norm, or more. I think recreation gets pushed off to the side, and we make a lot of excuses, but then the cost of that, like you're talking about, is what is recreation if it's not recreating our energy, our delight, our passion, our ourselves. And so, I try to find recreational outlets that hit more than one of the domains that helps me invest. So like when I go to jiu-jitsu, it's a physical investment. It's also a relational investment, because I have a community of guys there that we have a really, it's actually kind of cool. We have this really sweet, supportive, encouraging group of men in an Instagram group, and we're like sharing funny reels, but then we're also encouraging one another and like holding space and listening to like real life stuff as it's coming up. Like one of our buddies had a stroke on the mats, and like now he's possibly having to retire because there's like a pseudo or something kind of aneurysm thing. So if he gets choked, it could be the end. And so like we're supporting and encouraging him, and like just the whole thing is cool. And so there's like the emotional, mental investment in it as well, of like having the right types of problems to solve, and the physical outlet also venting some of that physical anxiety or tension that you hold in your body. And so it's getting creative and finding recreational outlets that aren't kind of like siloed off on like, oh, this is just only fun. It can be so much more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's like where it is relevant to like, kind of like a 8 domains type of perspective, is that like, they can all sort of spill over into each other. They can provide for each other if one of them is sort of feeling lacking, or there can be that overlap. And that's like a big thing. I think like there's like some kind of new studies about how like sort of like kind of religious involvement is on the decline. And that has been like previously in like our cultures, a lot of places where we've gotten like a sense of community, because we're there for this like sort of similar purpose. We're committed to the community and like a, kind of like in a way that's like sort of outside of who's there participating. It's like not just sort of like, like, oh, well, who's going to be there kind of thing. It's like, no, I'm committed to going. I'm committed to being a part of this, And I think like, having sort of recreational activities, like, for me, it's the arts, it's like writing, it's painting, it's filmmaking. That's where, I'm sort of in like a film world too. But, all those sort of generate like a sense of like community. There's like that sort of common purpose. There's something that we can like, support each other, generate excitement among each other, inspiration. There's like, something other to get to than just like, I don't know, like, it's more meaningful to me than just like, let's get together and have a drink. And then we just sort of talk about like, it's basically a catch up,
Yeah. And I think if there's one common complaint among like mid-20s into 40-year-olds, is that it's so hard to make friends. right? And so where do we make friends? We either make friends at work, or we make friends at church, or maybe we've got a cool neighbor that we can connect with. But essentially, what I try to encourage people to do is like, okay, well, like, go find what you enjoy doing, go to the places where people are doing that and do it with them, just like you did in school. You know, like, yeah, you went to school and then you found a club to be a part of, or you joined a team, or like whenever we'd go out to the playground, there was a group playing tag football, there was a group swinging, there was there was a group, you know, on the basketball court, and you just went to where you were doing the thing that you wanted to do, and that's where you made your friends.
As a kid, it was okay to just go up to a random kid and say, "Hey, do you want to play?"
Yeah.
And they would say, "Yeah," and you'd start running around. Boom,
well, and people still do that. It's called pickup basketball games.
Right.
You know, or it's called open mat at a jiu-jitsu academy.
You gotta be there.
Yeah, you got to go to where those things are happening.
Yeah.
And you just, so that shared common activity is, I think, the key to building those relationships into adulthood. But you have to have that courage to take that step to go into the environment that is unfamiliar. Like, I was having a session with a client today, and he was talking about how he just feels like he's in a rut, and, you know, he just doesn't really know what to do next. And I'm like, well, sounds like you don't really know what you want to do, so you just got to go start doing a bunch of things to figure that out. And he was like, well, what if I hate this, that, and the other? I was like, good. You found out something about yourself.
Yeah.
You now have more information about what you don't like, which is going to eliminate a bunch of, you know, like, you did the error, now go keep doing the trial. And it wasn't even an error. You just learned something that you don't like, so don't do that, and go do the next thing.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, and I think, too, it's like, I mean, I don't know, like, I try to flip the script a little bit of, like, where, like, tell people, you know, when they're talking about, like, having courage to go do something, like, I just sort of think of it as like it's a really great fallback. You know, like, if I'm going to an event about like the arts, you know, whether it's like going to like, I have a lot of different groups that I, you know, get together with, like, where we'll just talk about what we're working on, or, you know, we'll, like, you know, writing groups that will talk about what we're working on and then just sort of write together for a little while, you know, just sort of in the same space, or, you know, and it's also sort of a great fallback, you know, because, like, if you aren't making friends, well, at least I know I can fall back to talking about art, you know, or at least, like, you know, like, if I'm taking a painting class or something, and, like, well, I can just stand in the corner and paint, and it's still worthwhile, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to what you were saying. I think it was Toni Morrison and Brene Brown, and just like, this artist without an outlet is dangerous, I think is what you said. Like, tell me about that, because I'm chewing on that and I'm not coming to.
Well, you know, I mean, I think, like, it really is kind of the thing with me of, like, just personally, of when I'm not sort of, like, actively engaged in creative exercises, like, it is kind of like having, like, a golden retriever or something, or like a sheep herder dog, like, in your brain. And if you're not, like, engaging it in something of your choosing, something that feels productive, something that feels enjoyable, like, it will find something for itself to do. And, like, and that's where, you know, it's like, it becomes like a catastrophizing mill, you know. You know, it's easy to spiral. It's easy to become, like, very obsessive about, I mean, like, all sorts of things. I'm
thinking of the phrase "get a life," like, when someone is, or like, mind your own business, when someone is so focused on you, or they're critical, or kind of acting like a Karen out in the wild, and you're just like, does this person not have, like, they are obviously an unhappy person.
Yeah.
And maybe I think that's what I'm arriving at, is like, I don't care what other people are doing out in public. I don't pay attention, as long as they're not, like, causing me harm, as long as they're not being dangerous around me or my kids. Like, I typically don't even notice other people whenever I'm out doing my own thing, because I'm not the golden retriever who hasn't been on a walk today. Like, I have that outlet. I have things focusing on and ideas, and I think because I'm generally a happy person, because of how much recreation I build into my life, I'm much less critical and cynical and judgmental and focused on other people.
I think it might have been Robert Downey Jr. was an actor who was talking about, like, when he doesn't participate in some sort of creative activity, he gets really depressed and, like, physically sick. Like, literally he gets sick. And I've noticed the same thing when I've been in times of my life where I didn't feel like I was pouring out into something. Not just work is good, but like creative fun. I've gotten really depressed. I've gotten really down. And then it gets to the point where, like, you can double up the work that's not as fun. You're not going to be as good at it. You're going to be a worse employee. You're going to be a worse friend. All these things if you're not creatively fulfilled. And yeah, the same thing. I think that, like, it's a lot easier to attach on something negative than it is something like notice positive things. If you're really enjoying life, you're not focusing on what that random person is doing unless you see, like, a really positive thing, because that, like, you're able to see it. But it's really easy to find a bunch of negative things if you're not happy.
Yeah.
I think too, I mean, like, you kind of meant, like, talking about, like, well, I could work more. Like, it makes me think of, like, being involved in things recreationally, is part of my, like, prevention of burnout. It's like I like my job. I mean, like, I've invested a lot into getting here, and I really do find it very rewarding, and I like to help people. But, like, if I thought about it, like, all the time, like, I mean, I just can't, and so I actually, like, am very proud and happy to say to my clients, like, when we're done with this session, I do my best to stop thinking about you. Yeah. And that's a service to my clients. When I'm done at the end of the day, like, I do my best to, like, not think about work at all. And, like, and I have, like, sort of indications to myself, like, if I start to dream about doing sessions, that means increase my activity between work and sleep. I need to switch and do something else that's more engaging, because when I start to dream about work, I'm getting close to burnout, and my ability to show up for my clients starts to diminish. I can't just go home and, like, just, like, watch TV and scroll on my phone and then come back and do this. I mean, yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people do. Like, a lot of people, it's. And I've found myself wanting to do that as well, but, like, that seems to be the default for so many people. Like, their idea of recreation is going and, just sitting on the couch and being left alone and relaxing and unwinding and maybe having a glass of wine with a Netflix show and then, dinner and then, more phone scrolling and Netflix and going to bed. And my question is, like, how's that working for everybody? Like, really, if you're really honest, like, yeah, there's a time and a place for that. And I certainly like to, binge watch a show every once in a while, but I'm with you. Like, if I don't have these outlets, if I'm not, doing a podcast just for the fun of it, and because I like having interesting conversations with people I like,
And the millions of dollars.
And the millions of dollars.
You're obviously making for this.
Yeah. By the way, we are open to sponsorship. No, I'm just kidding. Of the 17 people who are going to watch this,
please donate to the link.
There's a donate button on the switchback.com website. No, like, if I don't have these outlets, I'm like you. I will start thinking about work, and I'll start catastrophizing about a lot of things. And so I got to do more than go home and just have that, like, rinse repeat type of life. There has to be some type of novelty, challenge. I got to have a fun problem to solve.
Yeah. I think there's an irony of what you said too, of, like, because you started at first said to go home, get a glass of wine, then binge Netflix. Because the reality is, if you went home, got a glass of wine, went out on your back porch and just watched the birds, or you, like, had a backyard fire or, like, campfire type of thing, like, that's still relaxing and recreational. And even Netflix and whatnot is recreational to a certain degree, but I feel like that there's this technological aspect that is constantly like trying to grab our attention so that we dream about it, so that we're obsessive, and so that we don't calm down. Like it increases anxiety, whereas that glass of wine on the back porch with a backyard fire is like we think recreation is watching Netflix, and it can be.
I mean, that's where I'd make the distinction of like, or like, I consider that passive recovery. And, and that's where I sort of make it like a line between active recovery. It has its place, but like what we're kind of doing with like being online and on the internet more and more and things like that, like I sort of think of it as like, I often use the illustration of relationships as a little bit like a dartboard. In the bullseye, like those are like my kind of most important relationships, and people have to graduate into that. It's like that. You start at this sort of more superficial, like you meet somebody out, like this person, like, would you like to go for a walk? Maybe get coffee sometime? Sure, let's do that. And you graduate into this like sort of place of like, real intimacy or like inner circle friend group. Like I think of like the bullseye that like that's maybe like one or two people, and then here's your like friend circle. Larger friend circle, kind of moves up from there. But like I think like a lot of and this came up in a conversation I was having with a community group Friday night, this past Friday night, that the internet keeps us focusing and like on increasing the least engaging circle.
Yeah.
Where it's just that sort of general like watching people we don't know, being involved in lives that we're not really like engaged in. It's like the least sort of meaningful, the least engaging, but it like sort of keeps us expanding that. And yeah, and I don't know, like I'm into just sort of sitting and like watching Netflix as like a passive recovery. I'm into like looking at like Instagram and things like that. I post on there. But like, as long as it sort of helps me get to something more meaningful in here, like if it doesn't, and I'm just sort of increasing this, and what I see is that when people are doing that, it's just like increasing unhappiness, increasing anxiety, because you're just watching people live lives and being like, gee, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is nice. Yeah.
And that's 2% of that person's life.
Yeah.
The best 2%, actually.
They're literally editing it down
right
for that moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I was in a jiu-jitsu tournament on Saturday, and I'm working on editing down the 3 matches that I had to all of the parts that I wasn't getting dominated so that I can just have that recollection,
Right. Which also, speaking of like Instagram, I think because like I watch your stories, like I now like have like I am like in the jiu-jitsu algorithm now.
I love that.
I'm glad that you do. I don't. Yeah.
That is what it is to be an influencer. I mean, influenced your algorithm.
I guess so. Like, yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah. I'm hoping I've had some influence on yours, but I don't know how that would show up, and I'm scared to know, actually.
I don't know. It's really heavy into the jiu-jitsu algorithm right now.
Yeah.
That's about all there is.
Yeah, that started to show up a little bit more.
Click.
Was that it already?
Yeah, something clicked there.
Yeah.
Does that mean pause?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can talk.
Yeah, I mean, that one's on you, so.
Ironically, for the first little bit, like half of your face was off because I didn't set the camera correctly.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, well. I mean, that can be an artistic choice,
Yes, it's.
Um,
But is it rolling again?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So going back to what you were talking about with Netflix and Instagram and TikTok, these things, I do these things too, almost like you're describing it. It's like, it's just a passive, like part of recreation is just hanging back and allowing something else to entertain me. Right. So I think there is a time and a place for that. I think the criticism I have of it is that if that is all you have, then you're not really engaged. You're not really growing. You're not learning things about yourself. And that is what recreation is. I break that down. I'm very, I emphasize this. It's recreate. To recreate is to recreate. Recreate your understanding of yourself, recreate your energy, recreate your interest, and you only do that by engaging in activities that are challenging, and they present problems for you to solve, or you have to engage in them critically. You have to break them down. Like reading is a recreation because you're consuming this, you're interpreting the language, you're really digesting it, you're imagining the characters and the scenes, and it's not just being fed to you without you having to do that critical like creation of that story. And so, yeah, I imagine writing a novel, a fiction novel, can also be somewhat like that because you're literally creating a world and lives, and I imagine that is also
it's exciting. It's sometimes terrible because there's ups and downs, but yeah, there are points when the characters take on a life of their own, to the point where you're just following them. There will be times where you like have an outline and they will do something different than you want them to do. And so it's not, I mean, I think there are some writers who probably just pump out as much as they possibly can, almost like as a passive thing. They know what is going to sell. But when you write what you want to, like, that you really want to engage in, like to recreate in your brain, yeah, like there's a very active thing of following the path and sometimes getting into problems. It's problem solving. You said it earlier. You need a problem to solve. That's part of the reason I write, is I need to solve problems. And the first book that I wrote is because I couldn't stop thinking about a scene. And so like I had to solve this problem. And after I wrote the book, finally the nightmares stopped. I'm kidding. It wasn't nightmares, but it was dreams. They were dreams.
Well, and I think the idea of a problem to solve, some people might be listening to us talk about that and say, well, I've got plenty of problems to solve. I got my kids are giving me problems. My wife or my husband are giving me problems. My job gives me problems. My bank account gives me problems. There's a difference between the low quality problems that life will inevitably throw at us and the higher quality problems that we choose. Yeah. And it's in the solving of those higher quality problems that's what I'm talking about. And even when, and I get it, like there are certain circumstances that people go through to where you're just hyper focused on a sick loved one or your own health that has, gone into the gutter. And, recreation takes a back seat, just like a lot of other domains might take a back seat while you're going through that. But for most of us who are just out here living lives, it is really important to find the problems that you want to choose to deal with and to solve. And that, again, that's one of the core components of recreation is I'm in control. I'm choosing this.
I think too, I mean, like, I don't know, somehow we've been talking for a while and haven't said this yet, but like, also, like, if we're not enjoying our recreation, it's like, what are we doing all this for? Like, it's like that whole, like, am I like living to work or working to live? And like, I think about like the kind of like sort of creativity, like, and this kind of problem solving that's like good is, like I use the feelings wheel a lot. My favorite one is at feelingswheel.com. Like I've never seen two that look the same, but the one at feelingswheel.com in the happiness pie piece includes words like creativity, curiosity, playfulness, and and I think that's the thing is like when we can engage in those, like I think a lot of times we sort of think of happiness as like a product, like, oh, if I do all these things then I'll be happy.
It's an outcome.
Yeah, it's an outcome. Yeah, but like if we're finding curiosity, if we're finding creativity, if we're finding like sorts of playfulness, like we're finding happiness.
Happiness is really an experience we have while in a certain type of process. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now the outcome is like satisfaction or accomplishment. That end result of achieving something on the solving the problem. I feel accomplished. I feel satisfied. I feel proud. But happiness really is an engaging type of, experience. It's like I go hiking and I'm happy while I'm hiking. Yeah, it's cool to see the waterfall, or it's cool to see the big, mountain vista. But I was happier whenever I was just like on the trail hiking with my two buddies in the mountains, talking, sharing, existing out in that space.
Yeah, I think that the problem-solving aspect of it, once the problem is solved, that's almost a new problem. Mm-hmm. If you've solved the problem, you've achieved the thing, you're done with, you've trained for a marathon, you've done the marathon, and it's over, you better find a new marathon. Otherwise, you're going to go back to the old.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the things that's so appealing to me about like jiu-jitsu versus like weightlifting. I do both. And with weightlifting, it can be very monotonous. Like I'm on a program, I'm going to do the same program for 6 weeks. Every week, I'm going to do the same types of exercises. It's the same movements. But when I go to jiu-jitsu, every answer is a new problem. Because everything that I do to answer this thing that this person is doing, if they're good enough, they have a new problem to throw at me. And so it's just never ending. And that is what's so appealing to me is I'm never, and no one will ever figure out all there is to figure out about that practice. There's a lot of people who are way better than others, but that's just because they've solved more problems.
It's the type of thing where if you get into a gym where you are the best of the best, you better probably find another gym to frequent as well so that you have people presenting new problems.
Yeah.
If the people you're sparring against never present problems.
Well, and it's interesting because like there are certain people whose game I match up with really well. Like there's a brown belt who's higher than me, and he's about my size, and I've never struggled with him because there's something about his game and mine and the way that matches up. I create more problems from him than he creates for me. But then we've got some other guys that aren't terribly bigger than me, but they are bigger than me, but they're like white belts. And I'm just like, your athleticism, your speed, your explosiveness, or your strength, like these are problems that my game isn't really suited toward. And so it's just really cool. And to kind of go back to this idea of like, and these are problems I'm choosing. Mm-hmm. And so because I'm choosing them, I'm way more invested in it. It's not that, even though when things are tough and I'm not making as much progress, or I get smashed by a white belt or a blue belt or whatever, and it's not fun, the bigger picture is what keeps me in it. Even though those moments, like even on a hike when you're hitting that elevation and it's a really steep hike and you're like, where the hell is the switchback? Because I need a break or whatever. It's miserable, but it's still fun. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's, I would imagine improv or sometimes acting or creating like paint or writing, like it can be, I'm guessing it can be very frustrating when you just can't get the expression to match what's in your head, but you just keep working it.
I think you mentioned earlier, when somebody says, I don't even know what to do, like what sort of recreation, you were like, just do anything. What would you recommend? Because I actually know some people who I've had that exact same conversation with. What would you recommend if there was somebody who's like, I'm just stuck in the things that I got to do. Mm-hmm. I want to find something creatively fulfilling, but I don't think I'm any good at anything.
That's, for me, that's where I'm like, am I any good at anything? Yeah. Like, let's sort of break that down, because it is this sort of thing of like, what we're sort of talking about is like the joys in the doing, when you're talking about like jiu-jitsu, when I'm talking about painting, writing, whatever I'm talking about, like in the arts, the joys in the doing, there's not a lot of joy in the product. Like I might sort of be satisfied when I'm proud of it, but like, for how long? I don't know. It's not very sustaining,
Yeah.
But the doing is sustaining. And like, and so like, I don't know, like that's the important part to me. There's a lot of emphasis in our culture on like what we produce, that's like sort of like the spillover of like consumer capitalism or whatever. But like, and I think it stifles people a lot from trying things. And so, I mean, one, it's like if you don't know how to play piano, like you're not going to sit down and play Chopin, like just start, like, mess around, like, in creative exercises, I'll actually encourage people to like, I also have worked with a lot of writers or artists who are experiencing sort of a creative block. And so with a writer, I'll say, like, sit down, try and write the worst story you can possibly write. If it starts to get good, sabotage it. This needs to be a story you are mortified to share with anyone. When you're done, there's nothing left to do but set it on fire, stomp it out, destroy the ashes. That's the goal. Like, I actually had like a writer that came to me. We did 2 sessions. They were having writer's block, and they're like, my job's in jeopardy. I can't write anymore. I gave them that exercise. They came back to the next session. They're like, thank you. I'm cured. I did that exercise. I completely failed to write a bad story. In fact, I immediately switched and started writing my novel again for the first time. I completed 3 like pending assignments that I've been, putting off. Yeah, I mean, that sort of idea that it needs to be good, that I need to be producing something good. I mean, in the arts, it's all subjective anyway. I think it's like some sort of like red herring that we have things like the Grammys, because like I've never in my life, like I've been listening to music, like I love music. I listen to so much music, all different kinds of music. I can't remember a single time in my life that my favorite album of the year won album of the year. Like it was usually I'm usually just like, okay.
Well, and even when you listen to music, you're not comparing it to this other record that you loved. I listened to the record last week, listened to this other record. I'm not thinking, oh, this one would win over that one.
Yeah.
That's not how you experience music.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I'm never like thinking about like, it's not like a bracket sport. We're not doing like March Madness for albums or something. It's like, I want to listen to this one today because it makes me feel these things, or this one, like something exciting here, and so I think like that's like when people have that sort of sense of like, well, I'm not good at anything, I don't know what to try. It's like go mess around, like try and get in touch with that, like, when we were little kids, we would just sort of sit down and like draw, and then we would be done. And like maybe we show it to our parents, but not all the time. And if we did, it's just like, I made this, and then we're off. Like we're on to the next thing. And it's like sort of trying to find that place again where it's like, I don't know, like the criteria is fun, or that's the goal, is like, is it fun? Am I enjoying it? Do I feel engaged? If so, congratulations, you win. Like, yeah,
the winning was in the thing itself.
Yeah.
You talked about your client who's a writer. I love what you just said. It's not so much like feel the freedom to fail. It is that, but it's like embrace inevitable failure. Like strive after something that you're going to fail at, because even if you miss it, you've accomplished a lot in trying to do it.
Mm-hmm. There was this interview that I saw like a long time ago. I don't even remember what songwriter it was. I don't even remember who the interviewer was, but I remember this as part of it. Like it was a really successful songwriter with a lot of like, hits. And the interviewer was like, how do you know when a song's a hit? And the songwriter was like, I don't. I write every day for the trash can. I do this for this fun, and I just do a lot of it. And, like sometimes I'll like have a song that I'm like, man, that's a good song, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a hit. It just means I like it. It's like, that songwriter was like, I've had a lot of successes with songs that I was like, really? That one? And, it's like, you can't predict it. It's like, I just have fun doing this, and I just write with people, and, I write every day like I'm just going to throw it in the trash. And I mean, I
love it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like a great approach, like, because then it's like your happiness isn't dependent on what you produce. It's, like whether it's you can't really predict that anyway. It's yeah, I don't know. It's always going to be a mystery. Why does something take off and something else doesn't?
Well, and I think you're getting at, again, like bringing home a really good point of when we're talking about recreation, we're not talking about success.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about producing something that is consumable and likable and, it's doing things that you enjoy yourself while doing. So that's another core, like I said earlier, it's like recreating.
Yeah.
But it's also, I enjoy myself when I am doing this.
Yeah. Or, well, that's the success. It's like
that is the point. The point is I enjoy myself, and not was I good at it, not did I win. It's just, did I enjoy myself? Did I like how I felt? Did I have positive thoughts about myself while out here doing it? Like, was it fun? And I think that's what I think of whenever I think of fun, is not, was it easy? Did I win? Was there a positive outcome? But like, did I enjoy myself? Was I happy? Was I interested? Was I engaged? Was I excited and enthusiastic? Like, did I have all of these positive emotions while doing it? Then that was recreation. I didn't have to win a medal. I didn't have to be the fastest. I didn't have to win a Grammy. I didn't have to sell anything like this podcast. It's just fun. I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy listening to myself over and over again at my desk, just
really
watching. I just really enjoy hearing my own voice. It's the best echo chamber imaginable. But really, like, it's just fun. I like doing this with my friend, that I grew up with and kind of haven't hung out with in a long time. Like, that's fun.
Yep.
It's super cool.
And, and I think too, it's like, when we talk about like people that like how we sort of, if I'm stressed, I'm like sort of letting go of recreation first, like, and, I think too, it's like when we're unhappy or when things are stressful or we're experiencing something negative, like a lot of times we sort of think of it as like, in order to feel good, I have to cross like the baseline of neutrality first or something. But I also, like, I don't really think of it in that way. I think of it as like a pie piece. Like, no emotion is exclusive. Like, I don't know, like this past year I had probably the best birthday I've ever had. It was not devoid of grief. It was not devoid of anxiety, of overwhelm. Those were just lesser pieces of the pie. And so, like, that's also what I start to work with on clients who are really sort of feeling a sense of like overwhelm, stress, anxiety, malaise, like loss of purpose. It's like, as if we can start to just sort of interject like joy and curiosity, a sense of playfulness, we're just like, it's like, can we just get a little sliver of happiness in there and just sort of expand that out, and yeah, it's like all those other things are still going to be there, like, yeah, we don't have to feel them like exclusively though. We don't have to be stressed exclusively, and we don't have to like conquer stress to still have a good time. And I think like that's one of the, like, I use this sort of story a lot in my practice. It's like a sort of Zen parable or whatever, but it's like a student and teacher talking, and the student says, like, teacher, how long should I meditate for every day? And the teacher goes, maybe start with 30 minutes. And the student goes like, okay, cool. Yeah. I think I can probably do that. I mean, some days like things get really stressful and there's a lot going on, and I don't know that I'd be able to do 30 minutes every day, because some days are like really packed. So what should I do on those really packed, like busy days? And the teacher goes, well, on those days do an hour. And and it's like, it's sort of like this, to me, we do sort of start to, when things get really intense, start to sacrifice like the things that are most meaningful, the most pleasurable, the most like restful. But like those are really the times that we need them the most. We need that injection. Like being someone that like worked in hospice care, like that was like sort of a main like a thing that we talked about a lot among the social workers, is that our unofficial job was, if we went into a house and the family was stressed out, freaked out, panicked, our job was to stay until we can get them laughing and reminiscing. And yeah, and that was like always the goal, you know. It's like that, like we need that at all times of life. And you know, and I think it's like, yeah, it's like recreation is a really great source to just tap into that super fast.
Well, and I think you're again, it's about recreating, it's about having something that I'm choosing, and then it's seeing recreation as a necessity, not a luxury. You know, like there are some luxuries, like maybe vacations are luxuries for people. You know, and I know that it is a luxury that I can go to jiu-jitsu in the middle of the day 3 days a week, you know, and go to the gym 4 days a week in the morning. Like I'm very fortunate. But also, even in past lives where I've worked that 40, 50, 60 hours, I still found time to go run or to get out on a trail on the weekend, because it has always been essential. It's essential to my well-being, to my physical health, my emotional health, to have these recreational outlets that I can't see as optional. They're not optional, because I'm not, like my health is not optional, you know. But I think a lot of people get, again, I think I've had to do a lot of work to get to that realization, and I'm so proud of my wife, because like she works a very busy job. She's at work 50 or 60 hours a week, and I'm happy to like support her and, you know, help her with meals and things like that. But she's coming around to this realization of like, oh, my health is not optional anymore. You know, my happiness is not optional. And so she's really going through this really cool thing to watch over the last 2 or 3 months. And it's just such a dramatic change in our relationship and the whole dynamic within the household. And it wasn't terrible or anything, but it's way more fun. It's way better seeing her happy and full of energy, because she's like, okay, I got to invest in me. I was focused on work and focused on this toddler for, you know, 2.5 years, and she still is an amazing, the best mother I've ever seen. And she's creating more balance for herself, which is super cool. And it's just kind of, you got to do that. And it feels like a struggle, and there's like some guilt at times for like prioritizing yourself, but everyone around you benefits when you do that. Everyone.
Yeah. Well, and you know, because it's almost 4 o'clock and I gotta go. Like,
it's almost 3 o'clock. This clock is an hour fast.
An hour fast?
Yeah, I never changed it.
Oh, well then. Oh, okay. Well,
because in a few weeks it's just going to be that time again.
Right. Okay. Well then, yeah, you're right. Well then, yeah. Then this is going to actually be our, like, maybe a good midway point. I was like, dang man, this time has flown. Okay, good. Yeah. Oh, let's stretch our legs a little bit. Yeah, like, you know, I mean, that's the thing, is like, it's necessary for a life worth living. Like, and that's like why it's like, that's why I'm doing this. You know, it's like, I want a life worth living. You know, that's what I want my clients to have. You know, and you know, and I think it's also the case too of like, when we talk about like sort of selfishness or like guilt or, you know, anything like that, of like taking the time for ourselves, there's a sort of like, I don't know, I like to kind of come up with these like sort of like goofy metaphors because they're memorable. But like, I have this thing called like the oh dang, what collective joy versus the hot potato of suffering. And like, a lot of times what we sort of do is like, we get together and we just sort of pass our suffering back and forth. You know, like, here's all the problems I have, and you know, you
think that's bad? Well, here's what's going on with me.
Yeah, and you know, you might hold space for it for a while, you know, but like, you know, you're gonna have to pass it away. Like, I've given you a burden, you know, and like, collective joy like I don't at all think of it as selfish. Like joy is the gift and the act of support that I can give, that I can give continuously and never give anything away. It doesn't cost me anything to be happy, but like the people around me like greatly benefit from that. When I'm happy, my clients get a better me, my friends and family get a better me. Like it's easy for me to do. Like I sort of have this thing where like I think a lot about cost benefit analysis, and like I don't know, we sort of like reserve that for like business a lot of times, like, but I don't know, like I think about it in life of like what's my investment and what am I getting out of it, if I'm sharing joy with somebody, if I'm sharing like something that I'm passionate about, something that I'm engaged with, that I'm enthusiastic about, like when we're with somebody that's like that, we feel that, we benefit from it. It gets us excited. It, gets us enthusiastic. It gets us engaged, and like, if I'm that person in the room, I've given nothing away. Yeah. Like, and like, I don't have to hold space to give joy. And our emotions, like all, it's like they're contagious. You get in a room with someone who is like super anxious, like you have to work to not onboard that,
Yeah. Yeah. And what you're talking about makes me think of a piece of Instagram wisdom that I picked up on. It was some like, I don't know, relationship coach or whatever. And she was talking about how to get past small talk. So like in a normal social setting where it's kind of like those outer ring type of relationships where I know this person, but we don't hang out. I see them maybe once or twice a year at a social event around a holiday or something. But then they'll ask, well, how's everything been at work? And I'm like, okay, yeah, good, great, whatever. So I will respond with the question of like, well, what's something you're excited about? What's been something you've been working on? Mm-hmm. And then they'll think about it. And this last time I was at a dinner party, like a potluck thing, and it was a bunch of people that I kind of knew, didn't really know them all that well, couldn't even really remember some of their first names, but it was more my wife's like work people. And the guy, he was being very kind. We had talked at a Christmas party like a year and a half ago or something. And he was like, yeah, how's work going? You're still doing that thing. Like, where y'all located? And he's asking good questions. But then I hit him with well, what's something that you're working on that you've been really excited about? Mm-hmm. And then he starts talking about how he's like into real estate and he's got these rental properties. And it's like, and he lights up. Mm-hmm. And that is such a good way to just like get past the, how are the kids? How's work? Mm-hmm. And to get into more like inner circle type of talks of, what are you excited about? Yeah. So I try to use that a lot of times to connect with people because I get bored talking about how work is going because you know what, guys, it's good.
Yeah. Like,
it's therapy. Mm-hmm. It's in demand. It's busy. It's all of those things. Yeah. And I want to talk about my podcast. That's way more interesting to me than my business right now because my business is kind of on autopilot. Yeah. We get referrals. I send the referrals out. Therapists see the referrals, and that's it, Mm-hmm. But the podcast is cool because we're talking about more philosophical and ideas. And that's another thing is like I really try to move conversations away from facts and events to ideas. Mm. Those are way better conversations than like what happened last week or, who said what in the news, right?
Yeah, yeah. My similar question is like, so what do you like to do?
Yeah.
And like...
I'm glad you asked. So I do this thing called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Have I told you about it?
No, it doesn't ring a bell, but yeah.
I've made it about 70% of my personality so far, and I'm looking for a full takeover of every personality trait.
Yeah. I mean, I think I might actually be similar with, like art in general, where I don't know. I think like it's like if I have clients that are not into like the arts, like it's, I don't know, we're not gonna have much to talk about. I use modalities, but like of course, like therapeutic modalities, but like, you know, I don't know, like we communicate in what we're in our interests, you know, like, yeah. And I don't know, like I had a client a while back that was like, you know, this like sort of CEO and like really, you know, was like reflecting on a lot of like job stuff and camera stop. I'm gonna keep talking. Like, you know, I had this like client that was, you know, CEO and like should I keep talking?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like CEO, like, you know, really like having like struggles with their work and like really wanting to like, you know, I don't know, like talk about some really high level stuff. And I was like, I don't know anything about like, you know, I run in the other direction from being the CEO of anything. You know, I don't want to do that.
I guess I'll hold off on that promotion I was thinking about then.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're welcome to just give me the money. I mean, can the title be consultant? But you know, like, yeah, but it's like when you can sort of find like that common language of interest, you know, and you know, and it's like the things that like get us excited, you know, it's like, I don't know, like that's where we're also finding common ground too, you know? Yeah.
My question is always, if you had $1 billion, what would you do? Because it jumps over the, like, okay, well, I'd stop working. Well, if you stop working, that means you don't love working. Like, why are you doing that? And then like you go down these things that will hopefully expose. If somebody said, I would just paint. Great. What are you painting right now? I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
You must have $1 million or $1 billion in the bank in order to do the thing that you love. Why?
My answer kind of does require me to have $1 billion in the bank, because it would be, I would constantly be on a boat or a plane going somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I mean,
traveling, living in different cities for a month at a time, and just going and experiencing different places.
I'm not. I could help you figure that dream out. Like, that's actually not.
I know I don't need $1 billion.
Yeah,
but
I have done that on a very small budget.
Yeah, same.
You know, and
you know what I've got holding me back though?
What?
Kids.
I mean,
they have to like go to school and shit. It's awful.
See, this is where creativity is handy. You know, like, I don't know, like I mean, you don't have to solve that problem. Like, but like, I'm like, sure you can.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, that's always my thought. It's like, sure you can.
We're taking some baby steps. So we're going to Machu Picchu in June.
Nice.
We're going to do the whole like 4-day, 3-night hike.
Nice. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I haven't been this excited about a trip maybe ever. Just because like it's another country. It's with my wife. It's just us, no kids. We're going to sync up hopefully with her parents, who I love dearly, back at the ruins on the last day that we're like, you know, visiting back there. And so, yeah, it's just like, that's a start, you know, and then thinking about if everything works out with my buddy Jeff's schedule, might be in Merida, Mexico in May. And so, yeah, trying to incorporate that, because I do notice that when I'm traveling, like even on summer vacations, like when we go to Destin and we're just in a different place, eating different food, you know, seeing different things, it just feels so refreshing. And so even with kids, and it's difficult, and you're just parenting in a different place, it's still parenting in a different place. So the expectations are a little bit different, and you just take things less seriously, I think. And so I can't wait to just start doing more of that traveling.
Which is like another value of recreation. Like another thing that like I think, you know, like when we're sort of talking about like, am I living a life worth living? Am I enjoying, you know, like depression versus happiness or something like that? Like I often sort of think of it's a balance a lot of times between like predictability or routine and like novelty or like improvisation or like newness.
Spontaneity is a big one for me.
Yeah.
I want to be I want to plan when I can be spontaneous.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, and well, that's the
Yeah.
key too. Is like, if you have too much of one or the other, like, if you have too much like predictability, too much routine, you're just gonna start to get bored. If you have too much spontaneity, we start to get stressed. We start to get a little unhinged, ungrounded. And so, yeah, I mean, that's also a place where it really comes in handy as well, and I think like what happens when we don't sort of put our attention on it is that balance either gets out of whack, or the spontaneity things come from, like, I don't know, sometimes we'll start problems. Like, like we need something spontaneous, so we'll create a problem for ourselves,
Yeah.
or, get involved in, like gossip or some sort of toxic drama,
Yeah.
Well,
and I see that a lot with clients, and it happens, the client will come in and be like, well, how's everything going? They're like, it's fine, and then they'll kind of drift into some low level dissatisfaction with their relationship. And I'm like, well, tell me about it. And they're just like, yeah, it's fine. We communicate really well. We don't really argue that much. And when we do, it's, usually we handle it really respectfully and calmly. And, and like, we have fun together, and she's very nice. My family likes her. And, but I don't know. It's just, and I'm like, oh, you're bored. Like, and then when you start digging into past experiences and relationships, whether in childhood or like in early romantic relationships, and they were all very insecure and volatile, and I'm just like, you're bored because it's peaceful and it's safe and it's secure, and like that's unfamiliar. And so I do think that creating with your partner like a recreational endeavor together, to where you're both engaged in a problem solving, and I'm choosing this challenge and we're both critically engaged in it, can be very, very good and preserving for a relationship. Because otherwise, like you said, you just kind of get bored and start nitpicking stuff. So
yeah, that's one of the things, like when I'm working with like a couple or like an individual that is like, kind of unhappy in their relationship, or there's like a struggle there. One of my first questions is like, what are you doing? Like, are you doing stuff to have fun together? Because one of the things that we don't sort of think about is like when we meet somebody new, there's like a lot of that novelty in the beginning, where like, we're getting to know each other, like there's that whole like period of, where you're like, oh, we just, we talk for hours, and, and like, you're like sort of doing things that are like, if not new to you, new to do together. Like you're experiencing like, oh, what are we like when we do these, travel together or spend all day together, or, whatever it is, and then as, we sort of like start to break into that first year and a half, we're getting into like the sort of more mundane routine aspect of a relationship. And like, if we don't put attention on that sort of balance of, bringing back in that sort of novelty, bringing back in that sort of like, sort of sense of play together, then yeah, it just sort of like, we do sort of get into like a nitpicky sort of boredom.
Well, and you need to play together, but you also need to play separately, because I love what Esther Perel says. She says the erotic lives in the space between two people. So not just sexual eroticism, but like curiosity, intrigue, interest, mystery, all of these things that caused us to be attracted and want to get to know this person in the first place. So like one of the things that I tell people is the version of your partner that you fell in love with is the version that existed before you knew them. So why do you want to change them into something different? You fell in love with a version that didn't include you at all. And so that was what you were attracted to, all of this mystery and intrigue, and they had their own shit going on, their own relationships and their own hobbies and their own routines. And so then, but what happens is, and I encourage young people who are dating, oftentimes like, stop living together after 2 weeks, because you're going to kill the eroticism that you need to preserve, because now you're up each other's asses and enmeshed, and like you've blown through a year and a half of getting to know somebody in the first month. And that's why you're trapped in these serial relationships, to where the moment the shine wears off, which it inevitably will, you move on to the next one. And it's because you chewed up all the eroticism by eliminating all the space that was between the two of you. So yes, like my wife and I need to have things that we do together. We have a show that we watch together, and when we're done with that one, we pick a new one, and we try to like have meaningful conversations, and we're going to travel more together now that, we're in a better place with like having a toddler instead of a newborn. But like, I also need to have my own thing. Like, she goes to the gym by herself, and she has her own relationships, and we can talk about her hot yoga, and we can talk about, her job and things like that. And then I've got my own separate things that she doesn't know about until I tell her, and that is so preserving.
If you do the same things always, there's literally no question you can ask each other.
Right.
Hey, how was your day? You were there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Miriam likes to do at bedtime is she'll be like, let's talk about our day. And what she means is, tell me about your day. Tell me moment by moment all of the things that we did. And on a day like a Saturday, when I was with her the entire day, my response is like, baby, you were with me the whole day. She's like, but I want to hear it. And it's really boring for me to just be like, well, I woke up and you were already awake, and, we had breakfast, and, and I'm just recounting the day. But that's kind of what it's like whenever you don't have your own separate things. And so that kind of creates the two experiences are like the two sides of Velcro. Right? I need there to be some texture to you for me to latch onto. And that texture is in your own recreation, your own therapy that you go to, or your own relationships that you have that, are creating challenges and so. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I think it all sort of, it's like there needs to be something still to discover.
Yes.
Whether you're doing stuff together or whether you're doing stuff separately, there still needs to be stuff to discover. Because if there's not, I mean, then, I don't know. It's like you're not engaged. There's nothing to engage. If there's not discovery, then.
Yeah, and I think it was my buddy Jeff's therapist or somebody had told him that if you stay together long enough, like let's say a marriage that lasts 50 years, that should look like 3 to 4 different marriages. Because as you grow up together, you're also growing into different people with different values and different interests, for the most part. So then you have to decide at certain points, like, is this still, committed relationships make it work. And that's part of the challenge, is like waking up one day and being like, I don't feel like the same person I was in my 20s or my 30s. And so now I've got to present this authentic version of myself and hope that my partner is going to accept it. And if you've done the work of building that trust and relationship and connection, then they do. But that's what keeps it interesting, I think, and exciting. Is it's just a challenge, but it's a good challenge.
I'm thinking a lot, several things we're talking about. I'm thinking a lot about the show Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and how unrealistic they are, because they are so over the top. They have these really, really exciting romantic recreational moments. They also have these separation where they're like, it literally is filming them apart, and they can't be with that person because they're on a different date.
Right.
There's all this chaos.
Yeah.
How many of them survive after the show's over and they just like go back to normal life? And I think part of the reason they don't survive, of course, I don't even know. Maybe they all do. I
know at least one that didn't, because her fiance was one of our guests. Fantastic.
Yeah. But it takes a lot of work, I think, because if you fall in love on a show like that and you go home, they're not shipping you off to some amazing romantic location with rose petals falling down. You have to do that work.
Right. Yeah.
So if you're like beside each other all the time, like, you've got to figure out this balance that made you fall in love on a show like that. That it's like, it's easy to almost force like that incredible intimacy when you throw all these things in there. So with that thought is like, if you're already in a relationship and it's gotten boring or whatever, like think that you're a contestant on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, and like create these moments to where like, oh, I can't see you until Tuesday because that's the scheduled date that we have to do. I don't even know.
Well, and to kind of that point, like these don't need to be enormously grand, expensive gestures. Like go to a restaurant that has like 2 stars, you know?
Yeah.
And
experience.
Just experience and then like test it out and see if it's really that bad.
Yeah.
Like, and then laugh about it or, you know, have food poisoning with each other the next day. I don't know. But like the first date that my wife and I ever went on, my wife and I went on when we were dating was to Bobby's Idle Hour. It was a bar on Music Row, and on Monday nights they would do open mic night, and it was horrific. It was the worst comedy because one, they were working new material. They were like it wasn't zany. So you're right. It was like a hole in the wall bar on Music Row, and about 30 seconds into like crickets, then they would just turn on themselves and just self-deprecate and that's when it got funny, and you're like, oh, this is. And so those types of dates are out there, like the Holistic Connection on, you know, Harding and Belmead. I saw it's like a dispensary, like a weed coffee bar, and they do open mic nights now on Mondays, and I'm like, that's cool. So go do shit like that with your partner. It doesn't have to be cooking classes. It doesn't have to be these romantic candlelit symphony, you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be a show at TPAC. There's so many opportunities to just get out and have these random weird experiences that you might not like, but at least you're with the person you like the most. And that's what makes it fun.
And there's that discovery part.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the other thing is like a lot of people, it's like, you know, they're like, you know, like, well, I mean, we do a date night. Like, what do you do for your date night? Well, you know, we go to our favorite restaurant, and then, and it's like, you know, it's like, well, like they're even describing it in a way that makes me want to take a nap. You know, like.
Well, and Amy and I got like we kind of do the same thing, you know. But again, like when we go out to eat, you know, we have our favorite places. But now that I'm talking, like our next date night needs to be somewhere we've never been. Eating food that might be challenging for me because I'm super picky. Yeah. You know?
I love, not that I love all the social media trends, but I do love one right now where it's like a couple will paint a picture of each other, like not at a class, just at home. They'll paint a picture of each other and then the reveal. And it's always like one person was like exceptionally good and the other person is exceptionally bad. And like the thing that's beautiful about that is like during the whole, like the uncomfortable moment of painting, you have conversation, and then the uncomfortable reveal, like that might allow you to realize, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that my partner was amazing at this, or I assumed they'd be better, or is that how you see me, or whatever. Yeah. More conversation.
You know, that sort of makes me think too of like something that relates back to like your question about like what, you know, the entry point of like how do I sort of try new things, or whatever. One thing too, I think that's like a hurdle is like let's do something fun tonight. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do? And we like lose a whole bunch of energy trying to think of one good thing. An exercise that I like to do with clients, but I also do this with myself, is like make a list. Like when something comes up, like I have like a running, like, you know, there's like a shared, like a note. Like actually, like my partner has one, I have one, of like things to do together. And when something comes up, we put it to the list. And when we're like, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Like, well, let's look at the list.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and something that's like super appreciated in those types of relationships is just like, hey, I'm going to go do this, or I want to do this. Will you do this with me on Saturday?
Yeah.
Like, I want to go try out this new sushi restaurant.
Yeah.
When do you want to do that this week or whatever, you know? And that initiation is very appreciated. And, you know, again, it's not, I think the fear that people have in some relationships, it's a real fear of like, that's a bid for intimacy, as the Gottmans call it, of like, I want to go do this. Do you want to go do this with me? And the fear is that your partner will say, I'm not interested in doing that. And then so you feel let down and you made yourself vulnerable. But if we can get to a point to where partners can recognize what a bid for intimacy is,
Mm.
and then they see it's not about going and getting sushi. It's about joining my partner. Perfect example is I have a couple who, one of the big moments that they had on the couch in a session was they would always go to his place for brunch on the weekends. And she's been wanting to try this place for months. But it's kind of like a frou-frou, brunchy, almost like a, like chicken salad type of place. And he likes, French toast and bacon and eggs and sausage and, stuff like that. And so he finally agrees to go, right? I'm going to go. We can go try your place. And they sit down, and when it comes time to order, he doesn't order a thing. And then he could not understand why she was mad at him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it took me the better part of a 50-minute session. And I'm not...
Like, let's break this down.
I hope he got it.
Right.
But it's like, it wasn't about the food for her.
Yeah.
It was about her wanting to experience something with you. And he's like, but I was there. No, you weren't experiencing it.
Yeah.
You were spectating as your wife did something.
Yeah.
Instead of joining her and trying it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to perform. Like, I don't want to I don't want to eat in front of a panel, like, yeah. Well, and I think too, it's like with that whole, like, figuring out, like, what, like, a bid for intimacy is, that's like another sort of value to me to, like, sort of generating, like, lists. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, I had, some clients that did this sort of thing of, like, they kind of came up with a system. I was like, like, sit down and just, like, like, batch it, like, let's just brainstorm, like, sit down and, like, brainstorm, like, things that we can do together as a family. They actually ended up taking it above and beyond. Like, they had, like, it was something like 3, like, large sort of manila folders. And in those had, like, time limits on them. Like, so it was like, 1 to 2 hours. Another one was like half to full day, and another one was like weekend activities. And then inside that, they had other envelopes that had dollar signs. Like, so there was a free envelope, a $2 sign, and then like a $4 sign or whatever. Mm-hmm. And and so when they were like looking for something to do, and like recognizing that, like, we're looking for that thing that we can do together that we can connect on. Like, yes, we could sit on the sofa and watch TV and be on our phones or whatever. That's proximity. That's quantity. That's not quality. And when they sort of recognize that we're looking for something quality, they've generated this list together, And then it's like, well, let's pull something. And now it's a game that they're playing. Now they're like into it. They're like going for like like getting into what they're already have decided they're interested in, and it's like you're immediately excited because, let's go to the.
Well, that's also exciting. It changes your whole life because you start you see something, you drive by a restaurant, you see the restaurant, you're like, oh, I should add that to the list. You drive by this new thing, and so it keeps you in the mindset all the time of like experiencing life.
Yes, yeah,
and that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing too of like, I think like a good point in terms of recreation as well, of like how to be engaged with what you're doing. Like I can go for a walk outside, or like I can go for a walk and be like inspired, or I can be like driving home from work, or like I can be like sort of paying attention in that way of like, look at that over there, that's weird,
Yep.
And like one of the things that I'm like really enjoy doing just recreationally is like, I think it's really fun to take like the same walk every day and see, like, can I find something I didn't see yesterday?
You know who's really good at that? Toddlers.
Yes.
I remember taking Miriam on a walk. She was 2, and Jamin, my oldest son, went with us, and it was just we were going to do this one little like third of a mile loop in our neighborhood. And so to Jamin and I, like same cars, same trees, same houses. And Miriam can't go 10 feet without stopping and picking up a rock or picking up a leaf or finding a flower petal. And Jamin starts to get frustrated. And he's, you know, and he's, I can't remember what he said, but it occurred to me. And I was like, oh, no. The only one doing this walk correctly is Miriam. Like, we're in a hurry for what?
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
the purpose was to be out here walking. It's not an exercise walk, which is different.
Yeah.
It's just we needed to get outside the house.
Yeah.
You know, and just be in the sun. And, like, he's getting frustrated because he has to stop every once in a while. And I'm like, no, there's a lesson to learn here from this 2-year-old she's killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is as mindful
Yeah.
as anyone has ever been because she's not missing a detail.
Yeah. Well, and we think that, like, as we get older, we have this sort of sense that we lose that because it's like, oh, but it's so new when you're a kid. It can still be new. Like, I don't have any trouble, like, finding new things, you know? It's like, I like to go, when I go for a walk, I have this, like, sort of thing of, like, what's my favorite thing on this walk, you know? And, like, and I'll, like, be looking for a photo to take. I want to at least take one photo of something weird. Yeah.
Weird, but yeah, I mean,
Well, you know, but I'm really sort of big on, like, you know, it's like I've got some of them in my office, you know, where it's just like I went for like a walk at Shelby Bottoms Park, and I found like this like old tennis shoe just like caked in mud.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm like, what? That's you know, and like, what's the story behind this? Or like. I found like a really cool like blue jay feather, took a picture of it. That's on my wall in there. Like I found like a little, like in the sort of crack of the sidewalk, I found like a little toy shoe, you know, and it's like, wow, you know, and like,
and that's the kind of stuff that kids see on walks, and they're completely unbothered by the pace or by the distance or by the weather.
Yeah.
And they're just in that moment. So again, you're getting at something of like, the mindfulness approach or the mindfulness component of good recreation. I'm recreating energy by unplugging from everything else that would distract me and just experiencing this one thing.
I just imagined a lot of us literally, like, as we're walking everywhere, we've got a phone. Like
I'm really bad at it.
We can't take our eyes away from the phone because we think that's where the world knowledge and whatever is. But in reality, like, taking that away, all of a sudden becoming mindful of everything around you.
You remember going on road trips?
Oh, yeah.
When we didn't have phones?
And people literally wouldn't even know where you are in the country.
Right. But then, like, what did we do? Like, my kids need iPads and cell phones and, you know, devices and switches to get through a 3-hour road trip to my in-laws in West Tennessee.
Right.
And I'm sitting back and I'm like, okay, what did I do on the 1.5-hour drive to Holiday World every summer? Like, what did I do driving through cornfields? I stared out the window and I just, like, daydreamed.
Yeah.
I imagined. I had, like...
We had a game in my family. It was the alphabet game, and it was like you had to start, you know, find the letter A, find the letter B. And so going to my aunt's, we went there so often, I knew exactly where the X and the Z were going to be.
We've done that, yeah.
But like,
I Spy. We play I Spy a lot.
Yeah. I think it was almost a trick of like parents keeping you quiet, but it was also a trick of like being really engaged, see everything that there is to see, because we would notice things that you would normally notice.
Yeah.
As you're just driving down the road.
Yeah, we were in Zion last summer. We went to Zion, and have you ever driven through Zion? Zion National Park in Utah.
Oh no.
You enter into the park. And then you're just like hit in the face with the most beautiful, like you're in the mountains. Yeah. And there's even one part to where you're driving through like a 1-mile-long tunnel that was like dynamite blasted through this mountain. And even that's cool, you know, like, and it was so frustrating as a parent and being older and appreciating it and like looking in the back of the rental car and seeing my son like look down with the blue glow on his face, and I'm like, dude, look up.
Yeah.
Like this is too good to miss.
Yeah.
Stop you know, and just like feeling that urgency for him to just like, you got, and I need to do better at it too, because like you said, just walking from here to Starbucks or, you know, or whatever it is, like I'm just in my phone a lot.
Yeah.
So very good conversation to kind of bring a reminder to like, there's so much to see if you just get out of the screen, you know?
And there's like, yeah, I mean, well, you know, for one, yeah, like I think we give devices like too much credit for keeping us engaged with things. You know, like, yeah, it is the thing of like, when I didn't have one, I was just fine. When I don't have one now, I'm just fine. Yeah. You know, and like, and I think, you know, one of the other things that it sort of like makes me think of is, I don't know, I read this article once about like, there's like two sort of general brain processes that don't sort of happen at the same time: the narrative and the experiential. And like the, you know, so the narrative is the one that's where we're like making meaning, we're telling stories about things that have happened. That one can be active if we're in like sort of like a sedentary space or like a muscle memory space, you know, which is what happens to us a lot when we're driving home from work. I know I don't need to pay attention. It's so committed to memory, you know? The experiential is like, I always sort of think of like basketball, you know, in basketball, like I don't have time to narrate, like, what does this mean for my life? You know, like, yeah, I'm not thinking about, you know, future problems or whatever, because I'm paying attention to where's the ball, what are my teammates, where's the opposing team, where's the basket. All movements are relatively unpredictable.
I love how that always goes off when you're in the middle of a point.
Right.
And so then it doesn't matter if I'm on the screen or not.
Right. Which, you know, I mean, yeah. I still don't think it still probably interrupts the point just fine, but like, yeah. Let me backtrack.
So it's the experiential versus the
narrative.
The
experiential versus the narrative. And like, you know, it's like thinking about that sort of basketball game. Like there's so much that's happening that is unpredictable. You know, even if you're trying to run a play or like, you know, a defensive strategy or something, you have to be present, you know, because it's, you're so driven by the experience. You don't have time to narrate. You don't have time to make meaning. You don't have time to worry. And I think that's also part of like quality recreation is when we can tap into that experiential mind and get out of like the narrating, get out of like the, like our problems and our anxieties and things that aren't present anyway. Like a lot of times, like we're going for a walk or we're driving or something, we're thinking about something that we're dreading, or we're feeling this sort of sense of dread or anxiety or exhaustion over something that is absolutely not present in that moment. And if we can sort of switch to that experiential thing, like really sort of engage, like, because like, I don't know, like driving home or going for a walk, it's honestly oftentimes like a sort of neutral experience, you know? And so it's like, why not engage like in an, you know, in that sort of experiential way, you know, why not like, look for like, what's my favorite thing on this walk? What's cool? Like, yeah, instead of just like worrying about something that isn't actually there. Present. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard it, I like narrative and experiential because that's more relatable terms, but I learned it as explicit and implicit being. Like when we're in our implicit being, that's like the autopilot. That's how sometimes when we're actually going to the store, but we end up finding ourselves on the way to work because they both start the same way. Yep. And we pass the store and we're like, oh crap, I was going to work. You know, that's because we get into that implicit way of being. And then the explicit is like a conversation or playing a sport or painting or something. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really good point that has been coming up a lot with some of my clients with you said earlier when we were talking about like, what did I do without a cell phone? You know, you're like, I was fine before it and I'm fine without it. And things were bad in the world. They were just different bad 20 years ago. And 30 years ago, we just didn't know about how bad things were. But they were still bad things happening in the world. And I think that is, you talk about like we give devices too much credit for keeping us engaged. And I think that they keep us too engaged.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, many of the things that is happening in the world, not all of them, and I want to just go ahead to the internet and say, I'm a middle-aged, cisgendered, heterosexual, white man, and so I understand what I'm about to say comes with an enormous amount of privilege, and a lot of the things that people are outraged about are not happening directly to them in that moment. And we hear about them 24/7, and I have clients come in and they're like, well, how are you dealing with all of the stuff in the news and all of the executive orders? And I'm like, I'm doing the same thing that I was doing before they happened.
Right.
I'm aware that they're happening, and I'm grieved over the pain that they're causing people, some people that I care about. And I also am trying to be humble in knowing what I don't know about those experiences. And I'm doing the same shit that I was doing before they started, because that's what's keeping me like from spiraling and becoming so hyper focused on the negative, you know. So like I get enough politics in the scrolling that I do, and then there's like a certain threshold that I have to hit to where I'm like, oh, like none of this is really affecting me right now.
Yeah.
So I need to go do something else.
I
need to unplug from it.
I've had some conversations here lately where they've gotten heated, and I think it's partially because some of my friends have gotten so locked in and like have gotten really depressed is the wrong word, but just like so angry like all the time. And I'm like, do you realize, one, the anger doesn't help. Like you're not spurring yourself on to do something differently. You're just spiraling into the anger. That doesn't help. And so, yeah, like I think that you're right. I think that like being constantly aware, like you could sign up to notifications every moment for the worst possible thing in the entire world, all the time. And like, I can't handle that. I have to unplug as much as possible.
I had a client today who is really struggling with some of the executive orders and some of the movements that are happening in a very conservative part of the world. And, you know, he was like, well, how are you dealing with it? I'm like, I'm focusing on what's directly in front of me instead of what's happening abroad in the world. And what's directly in front of me is like having difficult conversations with my teenage son about what's happening and trying to hear him and learn his values while also sharing some of my own and letting him make decisions. And then understanding that I have a 10-year-old at home who's confused about things and is venturing into the world of the internet. And he's making some missteps, you know, and trying to be there and present with him while also having this toddler, and then also having employees and friends. And, you know, like there's so much directly in front of me that needs me to show up that like, yeah, I don't feel like I can afford to kind of like spiral into all of the bad things happening in the world, because too many people are depending on me to just be in this present moment doing my best.
No.
Well, you know, and like on all that, I mean, I am currently like enemy of the state #1.
Right.
You know, like, I'm like pretty much I don't know if there's like a queer box to tick. Yeah, I'm like ticking it, you know, in some way. And like, I mean, I don't know, like I've faced a lot of questions like from my clients and like, how are you like, you know, how are you coping with this? And like, how are you, I mean, yes, I'm grounded. I'm like, I'm watching, you know, I'm sort of checking in because there are things that impact me, but it's also, it's grounded optimism. The things that I enjoy are still here. And like, I mean, election, you know, day, I had a client, who, you know, was a trans client. What are we going to do if Trump wins? And I immediately said the same thing we would do if Harris wins. Like, there's the same work is needed. Like, you know, it wouldn't have been magical fairies, and, you know, like all the communities that are impacted still need help and support. you know, like I don't know, it wasn't like all like roses and candy, you know, like before. Like Tennessee led the way in like, you know, trans like hate legislation, like for the last like couple of years, like topped it out. Like we're talking like 400 to 500 bills per year, per legislative cycle, just trying to reduce the rights and like acknowledgement of trans non-binary people. But you know, like in that time, I mean, it's like, that's the thing, is like, there's still joy, there's still happiness, you know, like, I don't know, all this is going on. Like, I'm more supported now than I've ever been in my life, you know, and like, in terms of recreation and the value of recreation, you know, like, I don't know, like, you know, I tell my clients, it's like, I don't know, like authoritarians have been trying to tell me what to do and how to live my entire life. They have not succeeded yet, and I'm going to keep going until they do. But they're going to have to come and take my joy away from me.
And I think it was Lee, one of our therapists, resident therapists, who posted on Instagram like a story of, essentially the synopsis was, joy is your resistance. Like everyone has access to that level of resistance. Just don't lose your joy. Keep doing the shit that makes you happy.
I was thinking about your son not wearing Brooks Brothers shirts. And like you were saying, you know, authoritarians have been telling us all how to live. And the best way that we stand up for ourselves is to be like, nah, I'm going to live the way that I live.
And, and like, I think like to sort of like make it even a bit more specific, like, you know, what I've been telling my clients is, it's like, when that question comes up of like, what do? Like, we continue to try and generate the world that we want to live in. And that's what recreation is a part of. Like, it's like, if, like, you know, it is like what I was talking about earlier. It's like, if I'm not having fun, what am I doing all of this for? You know, and like, there are certain things that I want from a community. I want a community that is engaged, that is thriving, that is supportive of each other, that looks out for each other, that is empathetic, you know? And so, like, I was working to generate that before. I'm working to generate it now. There have always been people in the world counter to my ideas. There will always be. You know, the power that I have is like, I can, you know, I still have the agency to try and create the world that I want to see. And I think it's like amazing too, when we sort of think about that, like even in a lot of really dire situations, we still have some choices. And as long as we're continuing to make those choices, as long as we're continuing to show up in the world and be what we want to see in the world, like we're making those choices, and that's an act of resistance. That is like, it's like, well, okay, you know, so I can't change my gender markers on my passport anymore, you know, like, or I'm not recognized here, not recognized there. I'm still recognized in my community because I'm working to build a community that recognizes people and respects the way that they want to be known and identified in the world, that is going to celebrate people's like uniqueness and their like the things that make them happy and bring them joy. And I want that for other people. And, you know, doing that, like, and that is like such a part of recreation, is like, and I think like that's the thing too, is like, people that really are like, you know, it goes back to that thing of like, don't you have anything better to do? Like the people that are worried about me, like, it's like, what? Oh, like, don't you have anything better to do? Like,
you are the least threatening person in my life,
right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And not in an insulting way, but like, I know you. I know that you're just kind. You like what you like. You have your community. You invest in your relationships, and not a single time. And maybe because but I don't think it would be this way otherwise. But like, we've had some pretty candid moments, like at Hilton Head, you know, and not a single time have I felt like you've tried to push anything, any agenda, any ideology, any philosophy onto me. We've just So that, I think that's the the thing that's missed here is like we're all just people trying to enjoy the experience that we're having.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to that, like it just becomes really simple to be kind
Mm-hmm.
when you just look at it that way.
And when it comes to like, you know, like the social media component and like the news component and everything, it goes back to that thing of like, it really pushes the quantity of the most superficial things, you know, which is like being outraged over very abstract qualities of life. I mean, it's just like superficial things, you know, and like we're looking at the superficial parts of people's lives where we're just watching people do things passively from our sofas or from the bed or the bathroom.
Yeah, well,
But like, yeah, if we can sort of engage in those more intimate, those more meaningful connections with each other, yeah, become curious about each other.
I would. It's kind of like, you know, historical like racism is like I think the people who are the most racist are the ones who truly know and have the fewest actual relationships with people of other races.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And so it becomes that of like, I think the machine, whatever it is right now, its intention is to convince me that you're my problem and you're the danger to my children.
And like, you know,
And that keeps me distracted
right.
from all the other shit that's going on that is really actually the problem and the threat to the future of the world and to nature and to the economy and to, you know, health. If I'm convinced you're my problem and I crusade against you and your kind.
Yeah.
Like, come on, folks.
And well, you know, and yeah, and that's the thing is like, that gets back to the sort of like experiential and narrative, you know, thing of like, yeah, I don't know. It's like, if we can get involved in something that we're enjoying, we're not going to be sitting there like bringing problems to a perfectly fine moment.
Yeah.
Like there's actually like no one is threatening us right now. We're having a nice conversation. Like, yeah, no threats, you know? And so like, it's not to say there won't be threats in my life. It's not to say there's not dangers present. You know, but like none of them are here right now. So why not just enjoy this? Why not be in the experience? Why not have the experience? And like, yeah, then if I get in danger and, you know, whatever happens, like, well, at least, I don't know, at least from 2 to 4 today, I had a pretty decent time, you know, like, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much nicer than, I don't know, we could be sitting here and
Catastrophizing
yeah.
and what ifs.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of that's a lot of like mental health for me is trying to pull myself out of the what ifs and to get into the what is. Yeah. And that's what my answer is to people. They're like, how are you dealing with all of the news and how are you managing all of the stress from social media? And I'm like, all of that is like what if for me. And so like what is, yes, there are things that are happening that are affecting people, and again, like my immediate, that bullseye sphere of relationships, like they need me to tune in and to just be there present with them. And like you say, creating the type of experience that I want people to have of me in the world. So, this was awesome.
Yeah.
I hate to wrap it up, but this is like almost going into 2 hours.
Yeah.
And I appreciate like you coming in and talking, and David, thanks for being here and setting all of this stuff up.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Hopefully.
We'll just continue to have a lost episode.
Yeah.
It'll be a whole podcast, the lost episodes. No one sees. It's just actually us hanging out. And
ends up just us hanging out. So, anyways, all right.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. Thanks. This was fun. Yeah. I don't know. Edit in, like, whoever edits this, edit in like a mic dropping moment. I don't know. This will be my. So you can CGI in a microphone, because I don't want to drop this one.
Yeah, no, please don't.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, that's Ryan. Was Ryan in here the last time you were in here?
No, that's why this is a lost
That
episode.
is why it was all totally messed up, is because I was in charge of audio.
Yeah, because we were winging it.
Speaking of,
did we cut off?
At some point we cut off.
Oh.
I mean, it would have been...
Did you use the new card or did you put the old card in the new card adapter thing?
Pretty sure I used the new card.
Yeah, it was only like 32 gigs. I bought the cheapest one because the other one was bigger. And I was like, oh, well, I don't want to spend another $60 on a 120 something gig.
The battery died.
Oh, you said we didn't need batteries.
It was full at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, now we know that an hour and 55 minutes is probably too long.
I was going to say, I glanced over many times, and it, like, I don't know when it cut off. It might have only been the most, potent part of the conversation. No big deal.